Hey look, Harold Perrineau's in the credits. That probably doesn't mean anything. The flashbacks in this episode are rather unusual, giving us introductions to 4 new major characters, because that's what you want to do when you're overflowing with questions about the characters you already have and you've just been given a finite amount of time to wrap everything up. But oddly enough, it works, because all 4 of them are immediately more interesting and engaging than most of the people we've been following up until now, and it's just bizarre to see them basically take over the whole show from here. Imagine if Agent Doggett had been a better character than Mulder. That's a level of meta weird we're talking about here. First up is Daniel Faraday, the guy who said, "Are you Jack?" at the end of the last episode. He lives with a caretaker and starts crying when he sees the report about the plane's wreckage being discovered, although he has no idea why. See, already you're attached to him, aren't you? Next is Miles Strawn, my personal favorite of the group. He's a spirit medium who we see on a job with a bunch of stuff that makes him look like an obvious fraud, but he actually is the real deal, which kinda makes you wonder why they bothered giving the ability to Hurley out of nowhere. It works with him because it's presented as part of him from the start. Now on to Charlotte Lewis, who keeps reading different articles about the discovery of 815 because she still doesn't believe it. Why? I don't know. She finds a polar bear skeleton in the middle of Tunisia with a Dharma collar on it, indicating there's a news station called the Hydra. Oh, that will be good, trust me. Finally, there's Frank Lapidus, a man who would eventually get about the same mimetic badass status as Saeed. Upon seeing footage of the wreck, he realizes the pilot, Greg Grunberg, isn't who he's seeing because he always wore his wedding ring, which he knows because he was supposed to be flying the plane. This is easily the best introduction of the bunch. And there's one more flashback where Naomi finds out about her mission from Abaddon.
This is a high-risk covert op in unstable territory. It's dodgy enough without having to babysit a head case, ghostbuster, anthropologist, and a drunk.
Did the writers think that anthropologist is some kind of derogatory term? These are the same people who seem convinced that the word hatch means a whole building, after all. The 4 amigos are in a helicopter that runs into the same trouble as Naomi's, and Daniel is pushed out first where he meets Jack and Kate like we saw before. Except that Jack now says, "Hey there," when he didn't say anything last time. I have no idea how that happened when they could have just used the same footage. He lost his phone, but of course Kate has Naomi's phone, so he calls Minkowski and acts all suspicious because we're supposed to be wondering what he's really doing, which ends up being nothing bad. Plus, Jack notices he has a gun, and he also explains that the other 3 have GPS trackers that they can find with the phone. Now to Locke's group, where just like in Season 1, he predicts a change in the weather, and it makes just as little sense as it did then. He says that before going to the village, they have to go to Jacob's cabin. This gets Hurley to start talking about how he saw it, but then he clams up and the writers are safe from having to deal with that.
Why would Ben say the people coming here intend to do us harm?
Because he's a liar. And he's trying to scare us. That's what Ben does.
Yes, exactly! Why is that so hard to remember? Of course, she goes on that he might be right about everything, which we'll find out is bullshit in this very episode, so what's the point? Jack and Kate find a box from the helicopter, including a gas mask. Daniel tries to weasel out of explaining, so in a moment that almost had me standing up and cheering, Jack directly confronts him about the gun. This is what these people should be acting like all the time, so it's a real shame that some random piece of normal behavior like this has become such an event. Daniel admits that rescuing everyone isn't their primary objective, but before he can say more, Miles' tracker comes on. Remember when I said that all their efforts at hiding Malcolm David Kelly's growth in the Season 3 finale would be rendered moot? Well, Locke now tells Sawyer that Walt was taller when he saw him. And as you probably already suspect, this fact will never even be brought up ever again. Somewhere a cinematographer is crying. He also reveals that he survived the gunshot because it passed right through the spot where his kidney used to be. And do I even have to tell you what a complete affront to medical science that is? Just take a good look at the neatest, cleanest exit wound you'll ever see. Miles pretends to be unconscious so he can ambush Jack. Yeah, this is pretty much what cemented him as my favorite. Turns out Naomi doesn't have a sister, so the last thing she said was a duress code. Kate explains what happened, so Miles tells them to take him to Naomi's body so he can confirm it with her. Ben screws with Sawyer by telling him he won't stand a chance with Kate off the island because that's what this whole show is about. This gets him beat up a bit, and Sawyer demands to know why they're keeping Ben alive.
We're keeping him alive because he's been on this island a lot longer than any of us. Because he has information we need. And because apart from his mouth, he's completely harmless.
His mouth put that hole in your gun.
Okay, James, let's execute him right here, right now, in front of his daughter.
Okay, what information? What makes you think he'll tell you any of it? She's not his daughter and doesn't even consider herself his daughter anymore, and that sounds like a good idea to me. There, I solved your moral conundrum, you absolute jackass. Miles talks to Naomi and confirms that Kate was telling the truth before Charlotte's tracker turns on. And then Jack pulls the same trick that was pulled on him in the hunting party with Saeed and Juliet forcing Daniel and Miles to put their guns away. Again, smart, realistic behavior here. Why has that been so hard until now? Charlotte lands in a lake, and there's this little bit where she's really happy to be on the island, and then Locke's group finds her. This means plenty of Locke being a jerk because the voices in his head told him she's a bad guy, and then he puts her tracker on Vincent's collar so Jack's group can't find her. And now it's time to catch up with Frank, who first runs into a cow. Never explained, and even if it is Hillary, like with the horse, why? His phone is broken, so he shoots a flare. Charlotte sees it and wants to go after it, so Ben shoots her, having stolen Carl's gun. What was that thing you said again, Locke?
And because apart from his mouth, he's completely harmless.
Now don't you feel silly. Luckily she was wearing a bulletproof vest. Jack's group finds Frank, who reveals that he was able to safely land the helicopter, despite which we will never see Claire and Aaron getting on it.
I'll give you the phone. You tell me what you people are doing here.
I'll tell you what we're doing here if you give me the phone.
Don't say anything about your sister.
Well, I guess we know who has the bigger dick there. Miles calls a woman named Regina who insists Minkowski can't talk to him right now, and that's the end of that. The episode's already way over the limits of the information that's acceptable to give us, after all. After establishing that the helicopter is very low on fuel, Frank learns Juliet's name and realizes she wasn't on the plane. This gets Miles to reveal that the group is here for Ben and has a photograph of him. I have no idea when it could have been taken. So, there you have it. All that crap Ben was spewing about how these people are going to kill everyone and blow up the island or whatever, it was all really about nothing more than saving his own skin.
We're the good guys, Michael.
I'm sorry you got shot. I didn't intend for that to happen.
Really? Does it seem like you're about to shoot me yourself?
What good would you be to me dead?
I don't know, what good is Naomi to you, Dad? Seriously, I want him to answer that. Once you've crossed the line to deciding cold-blooded murder is an okay thing to do, that question is kind of important. Then, rather surprisingly, he actually admits he was wrong about Ben and offers to do the job himself. Then Ben reveals he knows all about the people from the boat and says they'll need to keep him alive if they want to fight them, which, as I already explained, is bullshit. But Locke is stupid enough to buy it in his typical fashion.
How do you know all this?
Because I have a man on their boat.
My score for Confirmed Dead is 10 out of 10, a great 1-2 punch along with the premiere, and the first time that's really happened. Once you get past how weird it is that we're meeting 4 new major characters rather than getting to work on resolving the stories of the people we already have, the injection of some new blood really helps the show out. There's also a quite refreshing use of rational, believable behavior on the part of just about everyone, except Locke, where you actually believe they want to figure some of this crap out. On most shows that would be taken for granted, but here it means this is one of the best.